So, here we are again, folks, standing at the blood-drenched altar of another Souls-like. But wait, don't roll your eyes just yet. The First Berserker, Kazan, isn't just another gloomy swing-for-your-life simulator. This is one grim, revenge-fueled, anime-drenched, parry-happy brawler that grabs From Software's homework and adds a little Dungeon Fighter Online seasoning to the mix. From brutal boss fights to surprisingly nuanced accessibility, this is the kind of game that'll beat you down and still make you say thank you. Sit tight, rage quitters, and parry pros. We're slicing deep into everything that makes Kazan worth your time. Like, comment, subscribe. Now let's get into it. A dark legend, reforged in steel and blood. Set a good 800 years before the events of Dungeon Fighter Online, the First Berserker Kazan plays out like a Shakespearean tragedy soaked in monster blood and anime grit. Once a noble warrior of the Pellos Empire, Kazan was betrayed, disfigured, and tossed out like trash by the very empire he helped save. After crushing a berserk dragon with his bestie Ozma, who, spoiler alert, later goes full villain, Kazan finds himself chained up, mutilated, and left to rot in the frozen wilds of Mount Hindmarch. Then, boom, an avalanche, because this is that kind of story, flips his transport off a cliff, and Kazan wakes up healed, sort of. He's now bonded with a malevolent blade phantom, a whispery, power-hungry voice in his head that's clearly got a PhD in vengeance. Armed with this sinister roommate and an ungodly thirst for revenge, Kazan charges back into a world that betrayed him, cutting down both old friends and fresh freaks alike. This isn't your usual quiet Souls-like protagonist either. With actor Ben Starr lending vocal firepower, Kazan is a snarling, brooding juggernaut with actual voice lines and character development, making him far more than just a glorified meat shield with a sword. Combat. That'll break your spirit, then build it back up. Forget Souls-like. Kazan fights like a fever dream hybrid of Sekiro and a crunchy anime brawler. The combat is silky smooth, precise, and wild enough to leave your thumbs trembling. You'll dodge, parry, deflect, stagger, stagger again, and then finish with cinematic death blows that feel like a Mortal Kombat fatality had a baby with Ninja Gaiden. It's poetry in pain. You've got 3 meaty weapons at your disposal. A sword and axe combo that lets you zip and slice with finesse, a great sword that hits like a freight train dipped in anger issues, and a spear for those who want to poke and evade like a stylish fencing demon. Each comes with its own skill trees, special moves, and upgrade paths, and boy, are they worth experimenting with. Mastering Kazan's Brink Guard and Brink Dodge mechanics is where the real joy lives. It's the kind of system that rewards those who learn it with absolute combat ballet. And if you screw it up, well, you'll get pancaked into the snow by some lizard-faced monster. But hey, you'll earn EXP even in failure, thanks to a clever system that rewards skill even in death. Enemies that hit hard, and bosses that hit harder. Every single boss in Kazan is a test of patience, reflex, and sheer audacity. They come in multiple phases, some with terrifying transformations, and will absolutely stomp you if you're not paying attention. But unlike some other games where trial and error is the only way, Kazan gives you just enough tools to succeed, provided you stop button mashing and start playing smart. Parrying not only breaks stamina bars, but can also deal damage if upgraded correctly. It's deliciously satisfying. The fights feel more personal, more intimate, like you're in a duel to the death, not just dodging telegraphed attacks on loop. The only downside? A few of the bosses recycle animations from mid-bosses, which might undercut the spectacle just a bit, but even when they do, the execution is so tight and brutal that you're more focused on surviving than nitpicking. A beautiful mess of upgrades, loot, and currency chaos. And now, for the numbers soup. Kazan has currencies for days, coins, soul stones, vengeance orbs, jarlings, lacrima, transmutation orbs, skill points, and about 5 other shiny things I forgot, because I was too busy checking my 17 open menu tabs. It's like someone dropped an RPG spreadsheet onto a fighting game. Is it overwhelming? A bit. Is it rewarding? Absolutely. Every single action, kill, or side quest tosses you something usable. The armor system also deserves a chef's kiss. Equipping full sets unlocks additional buffs, and with 5 gear slots and 2 jewelry pieces, there's plenty of room for fashion-forward death dealing. The blacksmith and item augment systems are robust, encouraging you to break down useless junk and evolve your favorite gear instead of constantly switching. It's min-maxer paradise if you can survive the menu juggling.
Your body. We must have it.
A split world, not a seamless one. Instead of one big, interconnected labyrinth like Dark Souls, Kazan takes the Team Ninja approach. Individual stages launched from a central hub called the Crevice. Think Neo or Wo Long. There's linearity, yes, but also a surprising amount of detours and hidden goodies. Whether you're digging up recipes for better armor or finding crystals to pump your stats, there's enough incentive to explore without ever feeling overwhelmed. The Crevice itself evolves over time, becoming a more dynamic place filled with NPCs you unlock through quests. They might offer upgrades, lore drops, or shop discounts, so chatting with them is often worth your time. One drawback? You can't fast travel directly between blade nexuses, bonfire equivalents, forcing a trek back to the hub. It's a weird limitation, but not a deal breaker.
Your body. Give it to us.
A story worth slicing through, but not sitting through. Now, about that plot. It's there. It exists, but it's not going to knock your boots off. Kazan's story of betrayal and rage is compelling enough to drive the action, but don't expect Sekiro-level storytelling or Bloodborne's cryptic elegance. Some cutscenes are full motion, some are motion comic stills, and while the art style slaps, seriously, it's anime meets grimdark fantasy, it doesn't always land emotionally. If you're into Dungeon Fighter Online lore, you might get a bigger kick out of the character cameos and connections. But for most players, the story is serviceable background noise to the real star of the show, chopping stuff into stylish pieces. Accessibility with a side of strategy. What makes Kazan extra refreshing is its approach to difficulty. Unlike the gatekeeping elitism of some Souls-likes, it introduces smart features that lower the barrier without making you feel like a cheater. You get experience even when you lose to a boss. You gain skill points by pulling off technical maneuvers like perfect blocks and dodges. You can summon helpful spirits mid-fight. There's even an easy mode. But here's the catch. Once you switch, you're locked in. No takebacks. This one-way ticket can be a bit frustrating, especially if you later find the challenge too dialed down. For new players, it's best to stick with normal until you unlock the Spirit of Advocacy, an NPC summon who makes the battles a whole lot more manageable. A combat sandbox, with no wrong answers. What keeps Kazan insanely fun, even 20 hours in, is the depth of its mechanical sandbox. You want a parry-heavy defense build? You got it. Want to turn dodges into offensive counterattacks? Sure. Want to slam enemies with spirit-powered special moves like an angry anime protagonist? Absolutely. There are so many systems layered atop each other, and yet they play beautifully in sync. No matter what playstyle you gravitate toward, there's enough flexibility to make it work. And when you pull off a perfect dodge, block a flurry of attacks, and obliterate a boss with a cinematic finisher, it feels like the game is applauding you. Side quests. Meh, but worth it. Side quests are hit or miss. Often they're just remix versions of levels you've already beaten, with recycled bosses that have maybe 1 or 2 extra moves. The rewards are usually great. XP, new NPCs, and better loot. But the content itself doesn't always feel fresh. It's functional, not exceptional. Still, if you're trying to buff up for a brutal boss fight, or just farm some currencies, side quests get the job done. A visual treat that occasionally reuses its palette. Let's talk style. Kazan's anime meets dark fantasy look is striking. Character animations are crisp. Enemy designs, especially the bigger bosses, are wild and imaginative. The environments, though, could have used a little more spice. Snowy peaks, dank castles, toxic swamps. It's all a bit Souls by numbers. Later stages do get more ambitious, but the muted color palette doesn't always help them stand out. Still, even when the world feels familiar, it's executed with polish. And when you're knee-deep in blood, stringing together combos, and dodging flaming death beams, you won't care how gray the rocks are. Our verdict. So what do we think? Well, this one's a solid 9 out of 10, even with all the shortcomings. While it doesn't completely reinvent the genre, it takes what works and supercharges it with style, accessibility, and some of the best feeling combat you'll experience this year. It's a rough diamond, one with a few menu-heavy blemishes, and a story that won't win awards, but it's undeniably sharp where it counts. If you love tough fights, deep mechanics, and looking awesome while doing it, then yes, buy this game. Like, comment, subscribe, and join Kazan's blood-soaked path of revenge. Berserk your wallets open, folks.